1962, the maximum lorry weight allowed on our roads was 24 tonnes. Over the succeeding 40 years, the size and weight has risen inexorably to 32 tonnes, 38 tonnes, 40 tonnes, and now 44 tonnes. This increase was planned in the 1960s as part of the switch from rail to road, and the vehicles were designed for the planned motorways. Unfortunately, they are allowed to operate in our congested urban areas.
So from my experience, accidents between lorries and cyclists are always very similar. They almost invariably involve a lorry turning left that hasn't seen a cyclist to his near side. The lorry will have moved out to allow himself room to make the turn, which creates an inviting lane along the near side for the cyclist to use. And the advice is to cyclists is don't go there. There is a problem with large lorries and urban areas. In particular, it relates to the size of the lorry and the height of the cab. There are several mirrors fitted to lorries, one on the right-hand side and 3 on the left, which give quite a good view for the driver to the back. But the area, particularly close to the cab, is very hard, if not impossible, for the driver to see into.
It's something that any experienced road police officer knows is a problem with these types of vehicles. There is sort of dead spots where the driver can't see vehicles down the opposite side of his vehicle, whether that's a left-hand drive or a right-hand drive tractor unit.
There is a big problem with a large blind spot on these big vehicles, and it's a particular problem in this area where we've got a lot of curbside activity, a lot of conflicting manoeuvres and a lot of pedestrian activity. The drivers very often just can't see what's happening around them.
This is the long-distance mirror, and here we marked out its footprint. This is the wide-angle mirror, and this is its overlapping footprint. This is the close proximity mirror. Note how small the footprint is, and that there is a large blind area around it and between the footprints of the other mirrors. So, there are several acknowledged problems, but what is being done to overcome them?
Some things have been done, primarily in conjunction with the local authorities. These would normally involve changes to the road layout, cycle lanes and advanced stop lines at traffic lights spring to mind.
We took part in the Don't Be a Space Invader campaign, where we publicised to cyclists and car drivers as well as lorry drivers the whole issue of people not being able to see each other on the road, because I think it's the cyclists aren't aware of the blind spot either.
Using an army open space, we placed a cyclist and pedestrians immediately beside a 44-tonne lorry cab, but just outside the close proximity mirror footprint, a common situation in towns. As you will see, they are totally invisible to the driver until they raise their hands and umbrella. This shows how dangerous these lorries are.
We've also, for instance, introduced advanced stop lines for cyclists at more and more junctions throughout the borough. That helps them to skip the queue when traffic's stationary at the signals, and they get away from the junction before the traffic starts manoeuvring round, so they don't get caught up with people on their right-hand side turning across them.
There are limits imposed along specific streets. Sometimes it's a weight limit imposed if there's a weak bridge or something like that. On other occasions, environmental bans are considered to keep lorries away from a residential area overnight or something like that. These bans tend to be scattered. They're not enforced over large areas of London. The difficulty we have is mainly police numbers. It's quite easy to see if a vehicle is contravening these signs, but there's a problem with the manpower to actually enforce them.
There are various places where weight limits are imposed or width restrictions are imposed in an effort to make the large vehicles use a more suitable route.
In London generally, there is a London-wide nighttime lorry ban. Obviously that doesn't have huge implications for daytime traffic, but it does set a prescribed route for vehicles through London. That would largely be what's known as the Red Route network. Building on that, Tower Hamlets has got certain local areas where we've put lorry bans in. The London-wide lorry ban does have a lot of spot checks going on at various places through London throughout the year.
Present actions are clearly inadequate to make 44-tonne trucks safe in urban areas. So what further can be done? But first, there are other problems with these huge trucks. Let's look at these.
Lorries, when they are built to certain standards of manoeuvrability, but there are no extra requirements imposed to drive in London.
In inner London, we've got a street pattern here that was built. It's been building up since medieval days. So we've got buildings that are aligned very close to the edge of the road. We've got very narrow roads and sharp corners. It
does become an issue on the narrower routes, and it is up to the driver to drive with extreme care in those sort of areas because there aren't the pavement widths. The houses are built out to the road edge, and it is very difficult for them to drive in these locations with the large vehicles.
Now, if you're a driver or a cyclist or even a pedestrian, you're not going to be thinking about the space that the lorry needs to turn. So you may not step back if it's turning into you, or you may think that you can get past on the inside when actually he's sweeping round. And that does cause a lot of road safety issues for us. We actually we comment on development control applications, and we can actually put tracks of vehicles onto the roads where they're accessing their sites to make sure that the vehicles they're using can get into those sites.
All of the large good vehicles that we're talking about, where you would need a special licence to drive them, they are required to have underrun protection on the sides of the vehicle or the trailer if it's an articulated vehicle, and also under the rear. And that's basically intended to make them safer in a collision with a motor car or motorcycle.
It would appear that many operators are not taking the requirements seriously.
There are issues about cyclists and pedestrians that they don't necessarily afford them the same protection, and it may be that there's more that needs to be done in the design to take account of that.
A typical cycle accident will involve a lorry turning left with a cycle on its near side. There will be a gentle impact at first with the side of the lorry, just sufficient to knock the cyclist onto the ground.